We're going to get a little more in depth. Sandy talked the importance of people who volunteer and get involved, and we're fortunate to have 3 corporate people up here who are very involved in the chamber as board members and different initiatives. And so we're going to start with that. And you know, one of the biggest things is just the chamber, kind of in general, and how very important it is, not only in size but its influence. So, Dennis, if you'd like to expound on that a little bit, the importance of it.
Well, I think that the chamber serves, Chris, several purposes in our region. While we are the Detroit Regional Chamber, it's important to note that while Detroit is in our name, and it's obviously a passion point for me personally, that we represent an 11-county region. And so a lot of the decisions we make, the programs that we execute, are very important to the region as a whole. And over the past several years, under our current executive leadership, Tammy and Sandy, we've also seen that influence blossom throughout the state of Michigan, having phenomenal relationships with the southwest side of the state, with the western side of the state, et cetera. But having said that, if you look at the different areas in which we play, first from a policy perspective, under the leadership of Brad Williams, who leads that area, we've been very involved in some of the key policy initiatives that have happened going back to the grand bargain, which was talked about earlier today in our meeting, to the candidates that we endorse. We have a very active political action committee, which all of our board members participate in to one extent or another. And we really take a very hard look at those candidates that are running for office, because we as business leaders, the chamber as a civic organization, have to have tremendous partners that are politically elected in those offices to be able to execute what's best for the region. So we play a role there. Our programming speaks for itself. Obviously, Mackinac is probably the most looked forward to event for the business community from a policy perspective each year. Now in its 9th year, the Detroit Policy Conference, for which I'm chairing this year, tickets are still available, is January 29th, and we've got a very robust list of participants, both national and local, and this is in its 9th year. So, you know, from a convening entity, from a policy forming entity, from a supportive mechanism for businesses that want to grow here, the chamber is extraordinarily involved. And I think that the synergy that exists now, really coming out of Detroit's bankruptcy, where you have the civic community, the political community, elected officials, the business community, and the nonprofits all come together, we are still maintaining that alignment that we were forced into during those times, but that alignment has allowed us to carry forward. I think the chamber has played a huge role in that.
You know, it's interesting because you talk about the service area and the counties that Detroit actually services. I can tell you as a statewide organization that your influence is even far beyond that, because people do look at the endorsements, they do look at the policies that come out of here and the initiatives that they have, because they affect all of us. And one of those important initiatives at the Michigan Business Network, we do a semi-annual survey of businesses, and for the last 8 of those surveys, it's been #1 issue, talent. Not only finding it, but then retaining it, because it becomes a competitive self-defense mechanism. And I know, Paul, that you are very involved in that talent initiative.
I am, Chris, and it's very close for me because as a first-generation college graduate, it's personal to me. And I truly believe that education is a stepping stone to a better life. And so I'm deeply involved with the educational initiatives at the Chamber because I simply believe in them. And the fact is that if we can encourage more young people to succeed in school, to then allow them to progress in their post-secondary education. And by the way, I don't for a moment suggest that it should be strictly focused on a college degree, a 4-year college degree, and here's why. We've built a number of movie theaters of recent, and you know something? We need electricians and plumbers and pipe fitters and masons, and there's an acute shortage of that type of talent here in Michigan. And so I'm a proponent of skills development because I think we live in a skills-based society. And so the initiatives that we're undertaking here at the Chamber are really designed to allow access for young people. But I think there's another group that we are very much focused on, and that is that with the demographic profile we're staring down in Michigan, we've got to also take those folks who have perhaps started college and dropped out for whatever reason. We know life happens, and bring them back into those educational institutions and or into those training programs to enhance their skill sets, because we know that a better skilled workforce will not only be better for us as business owners, but it will also increase the prosperity of our region and enhance the quality of life for all in the area.
Absolutely, and the younger you start, the more you start them thinking about a career. And it's not as a first generation college degree, which I am also, you didn't talk a lot when you were growing around the dinner table about education. And that's the thing we have to kind of throw in there.
Well, it's fascinating. In my particular case, I never knew that I had a choice but to go to college, even though neither of my folks had graduated. But I know that that's not universally the case here in Southeast Michigan. Many folks thought, well, I worked at Ford Motor Company, I'll get a job at Ford Motor Company, and so forth. And it hasn't quite worked out necessarily as well, because again, even working in an environment like a factory today requires an enormous skill set. And so we're doing our young people and even folks who are already employed in the workforce a great service by enhancing their skill sets.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, one of the places that Detroit has always led, not just the state, but the country and the world, has been in what we now call mobility. Used to be the automotive industry.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the initiatives that the Chamber's taken on from there.
Well, Mish Auto is the only organization, automotive and mobility organization, that focuses solely on mobility and the automotive. And so with that, when you think about the automotive and mobility space, you're talking about 1,600 manufacturing facilities located right here in the state of Michigan. You're looking at 17 OEMs who are either headquartered here or have technical centers here. And so it is the greatest area to be in, to play in, to do work in. So with Mish Auto, we have 120 investors who support the initiative of promoting, of retaining, and of attracting talent to this industry. We advocate for automakers, mobility, groups who have invested over $125 billion globally in research and development. And we are putting together initiatives to go after that talent, to bring that talent in. We've relaunched Discover Auto, which is a high school program, which introduces high schoolers to those opportunities that are happening there. We are working in partnership with The Right Place, located over in Grand Rapids, to expand the Mish Auto reach. And we work with the legislative bodies because, again, we are advocating for this industry. We're looking to bring or to encourage folks who are doing mobility to do it right here. We're in partnership with the MEDC as well as with Planet M for those startups to actually incubate in the Planet M landing zone. And where else can you actually test out your invention? In 4 weather climates, on a variety of roads, just to see if your invention indeed works.
You know, it's pretty amazing. When associations first started, there were a couple of concepts. One is you can get insurance cheaper, et cetera, but also was to give you a bigger voice, the advocacy piece, right? And now they've gone far beyond that. It's more than just influencing advocacy. It's initiating things that help small business and making sure that when legislators pass things, they've looked at what will the effects of this or the unintended consequences of this be on business. Dennis, if you don't mind, I'll run back to you and talk a little bit about that and how much we get done in that direction.
Well, I think that if to follow up on the Mish Auto discussion, if you look at how that plays out, and we had a pretty robust discussion earlier today about business attraction, bringing in companies from outside of the geography and even outside of the country to locate here, which we need to continue to grow, but also the importance of what about the companies that have been here, and ensuring that we do the best we can to support them. And with Lisa's efforts and the rest of the team at Mish Auto, it provides a tremendous opportunity because as we're developing that automotive sector, no matter how technologically advanced they are, They need an accounting firm, they need a law firm, they need janitors to come clean their space. And so there's an opportunity for those of us who are in the service sector, who are not in a field of technology, to participate in this growth. And so I think you begin to have an ecosystem that grows with, again, the chamber being right at the center of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we found that maybe we're scratching our heads and realizing that we oversold the baccalaureate as the solution to everything. Obviously, the advantage is it teaches you how to learn. But the other piece of that is we've neglected a lot of the people that you're talking about, which are the craft people and the people who are the plumbers, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we reach those, Paul?
Well, the goal is to increase access. One of the initiatives that we're involved in at Imagine is to participate in a contest to encourage more students to take to fill out the FAFSA form. And the purpose of that is to gain access to Pell Grants and financial aid and so forth. It really is the underpinning for helping students secure a foundation of economic help that will allow them to begin their education and sustain them through their education. And so we are focused on trying to encourage young people to complete that application. We're actually, we allow the high schools in the area to actually compete with one another to see who has improved the most and so forth. And we offer them a party at the theater for the winning high school. It's been effective. I think my colleagues on staff at the chamber would tell you. And again, it's all about trying to encourage people that they can achieve educational attainment. And I think that we want to, I think you have to believe before you can do. Mm. And so changing mindsets and helping, even with those types of soft skills, is, I think, critically important.
Absolutely is. And talent, of course, is critical to the mobility industry. And I have to say, for the first time, we have found a slight economic downturn. And that is not a downturn, but it's curved down on our growth in the economic circumstance, simply contingent upon the lack of talent. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's just simple arithmetic. We don't have as many people coming into the workforce as leaving it.
Mm-hmm. And with our organization, what we're trying to do is we're trying to grow up within. And we do we are participating in Manufacturing Day. So we are trying to, which I know many folks are out here in this industry are doing, we are trying to get to those kids a little younger than high school, just to show them that it's more than just the assembly that we're talking about, that they can actually make a good living being an electrician, being a plumber, and working with our organization, because we're constantly looking for those folks who can turn a wrench, because otherwise the robot won't go. So we're constantly encouraging that. We mentor, we have set up a literacy program there in the office when we have problems, or people don't want to talk about what they can't do. And so we try to catch them and develop a program around them. It is a constant battle with the talent. People just, they don't want their kids to do those things, work with their hands. They don't see the value in doing things with their hand. They totally look for the education piece.
That's again, we had one company in Mid-Michigan who talked to high schools, and they couldn't get the attention of the students until one of the ex-students who'd gone through their program was asked the question, how much did you make last year? And he said, $85,000 with a little overtime. And then they said you could have heard a pin drop. So this is one of the things that we have to say is the importance. It's not in the education, certification, et cetera. It's what you can do. Mm-hmm. Right?
Chris, if I could chime in on that, Lisa's point is interesting in terms of going to talk to the kids in school. Mm-hmm. I had a conversation with the chancellor of U of M Dearborn with another board member, Dean Brody, just this week. And we were talking about a scholarship that was set up by a U of M grad for a particular school here in the city. And it was for those students to go to U of M Dearborn's engineering program. And that scholarship has been set up for a number of years. And throughout that period, only 3 students could get access to that scholarship. and only one of those 3 remains in school, and that student's struggling. And it's because of those students had not taken the requisite math and science courses that they needed to then get into the engineering program. And the only way to backtrack into that is for, in my opinion, and I think, Lisa, you're speaking to this a little bit, is like it's like guerrilla marketing. Like, we as business people who are concerned with the youth, in this instance, from my perspective in the city of Detroit, we really got to get into the schools. I mean, if you go into the school and you share that message directly, and you say, hey, I'm a plumber, and this is how much I make, and this is, you know, the educational path that I took, and I earn a good wage, I've got great benefits, I'm taking care of my family, my kids are in school. I mean, when people see that firsthand, to try to get people more into engineering and the sciences, you know, at Jalen Rose Leadership Academy, where I'm on the board, we are getting kids encouraged to take coding classes, but in those coding classes, they are not only working with robots and the like, but they're learning to make beats. So now you tell somebody you can make music and you're learning coding at the same time, more people are raising their hands to get involved. And so it's really got to happen at that level. And I would encourage any of you who are not presently engaged in your local public school or Detroit public school to please get involved, because the more that these kids can see a role model who explain their career path, explains the importance of education, I think the more that they will look to pursue those sorts of careers.
And if I just, with that, if you can get into Career Day, please send someone in for Career Day and start at the middle schools. I have tons of kids who now tell me that they are entrepreneurs. They're making anything from the slime to the goop, and then they're asking me, how much can I sell it for? You know, so I just really encourage that so they can actually see, you know, again, what you alluded to is if you could see it, you could be it. So,
Yes.
I think that's critical.
These are really critical points that all of you have made so far, and that's cathecting where they're coming in contact with the educational facility, who are the schooled ones, and how to get kids in these initiatives. Has the involvement been good with the public schools?
It has been, and you know, we're very receptive to try to create incentives that allow for the reinforcement of good behavior. So, for example, I was approached last week about we've got children in the River Rouge School District that are performing, getting A's and B's, and we'd like to take them to see a film as a reward. And so I, of course, said, well, of course, come, and film is on us, the popcorn's on us, the soda's on us, but I want to absolutely reinforce the behaviors. If you're doing well in school, you're going to learn math, and math is so critically important. I would also tell you that reading comprehension and your writing ability is critically necessary as a success element in business. And so we're big proponents of it.
And Chris, to bring it back to the chamber and its role, I think, which is the theme of today, if you look at, we've got a great relationship with Dr. Vitti and support what he's doing. And if you look at, you know, our role as the fiduciary in the Detroit Promise through our foundation work to ensure that any child that's in Detroit, public, private, parochial, if they're a citizen in Detroit and a school in Detroit, as a last resort funding mechanism, we can ensure that, you know, money will not be in the way of you going to college. And I think that's very important. The Chamber continues to take a leadership role in doing the best that we can as a civic organization to ensure that, you know, Detroit students that want to matriculate through to college can do so. And that will fill that talent pipeline, because hopefully then we can get a lot of those students to stay here through our talent initiatives, Let's Detroit, et cetera.
You know, you made a good point, Paul, too, in getting involved, and students seeing business people like ourselves in their classroom talking on a personal level and kind of almost tricking them into our profession by saying, isn't this fun? This is, before they know it, they're building a robot, and then they're in the engineering program, where if you start them out with the engineering program, it's an I can't do that. Are we getting the people out of the business community through the Chamber to be involved in some of these programs?
I would say so. And you know, I serve on a committee that that has leaders from higher education, from business. I mean, we are deeply committed to enhancing educational attainment. And Sandy spent a good bit of his time talking about the initiatives here at the Chamber. But, you know, our overreaching goal is to have, by 2030, 60% of our population in this region achieve some form of certificate or degree, which is a demonstrable evidence of skills. And so we're at about 45 to 48 right now. We need to get that to 60. And again, doing so will enhance the quality of life. It'll help all of us as employers fill our rosters of teammates. And and I think it is something that the business community itself absolutely supports.
Yeah. So, Lisa, maybe in particular in mobility, having a global vision as someone coming into the workforce, I think is really pertinent. And the Chamber seems to be fostering that as well.
They are. The Chamber is, they go after the companies who are mobility focused. The thing is going out to the CES to see what's coming up, see what's there. But more importantly, answering the question as to why you should do this here in Michigan is really key. And again, we come back to, the number of automotive focused suppliers that we do have. We have the American Center of Mobility, where you can actually go out and you could test what you're doing. You have the Planet M landing zone to help foster that. It's a nice incubator for getting started, so you have access to those things. And yes, having the global vision, I think Detroit has that voice. We are mobility, and we are taking back that discussion. We're making it back here to Detroit, as opposed to letting Silicon Valley have that message, which is okay. I'm not against my brethren out there, but what I would say is that we own that. We created mobility, and when you start speaking with certainty as to looking at the number of companies that are international companies that actually do business here, that says something. So, the Chamber's doing the right thing. We continue to advocate for the automotive industry and other industries that support, such as the banking, the movies. We got to have movies so we can have a little respite, So, and the lawyers, we do need the lawyers. So,
A lawyer?
What? Yes.
yeah, okay, a lawyer, not a plethora. But anyway, so we do need those. We do need those things here. And Mich Auto is, we're constantly pounding the pavement as to why not Michigan? Why not do it here? And again, you have 4 seasons to test batteries. You can see what's going to happen to the battery with the 4 seasons. We have the hot, we have a little bit temperate, we definitely have the cold, and we have some challenging roads. That say whether or not they're going to break apart. So.
It's kind of interesting because I like Silicon Valley also, and I welcome them when they come here.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing how much of their venture capital has actually moved to the Detroit area, saying this is the land of opportunity. So along those lines, give me some other programs that are supporting the businesses out there that are looking for that venture capital.
I think that the Chamber and there are more people like Chris Thomas who sit on our board and others that are actually, they fulfill that's their business. The Chamber, again, is more of a convening entity, and if you look at the diversity of people that are on our board, which is approximately 80 or so, we do have representation from the private equity and the venture space. But the Chamber, that is not a role that we serve. I think that we tend to like to stay in our lane. There's a reason that we're ranked in the top 3 in multiple categories in the country for chambers, because we do what we choose to do very well. But having said that, I think that there, again, are chamber board members that play very heavily in that space. There are those that are investors, there are those that are venture capitalists, and that adds to the diversity of perspective of the board.
So along those lines, where do we go next, I guess, is the point. Because we know the challenges that are out there, and we're doing a wonderful job of attacking those challenges and putting the programs in place. Where do we go? Because everybody has tried to capture the power that we have in the mobility space. The West Coast tried to take it. China's going to try to take it. We know where all that pressure is coming from. So what is incumbent upon us to do to make sure we stay in that space?
I think more collaboration needs to happen between the companies, especially when we're trying to develop talent. We need to, we're not competitors with each other. We really have to come together and figure out how to solve this workforce gap that we have going on. And the only way to do it is for us to come together and work with the entities such as the community colleges or Wayne State University and come up with an apprenticeship program that actually works. It sticks. It's something that everybody can pull from and we all contribute to. I think, as I start moving towards retirement, I need to put, somebody in place that's going to continue my Social Security, so to speak. So,
You're not moving in that direction very rapidly. So
I'm trying.
Let's not get premature on this.
But I do believe that we have to have more collaboration if we are truly going to own this space. And I think the Chamber convenes the power to do that. We speak with one voice when we support the Chamber. When we support the Chamber's efforts, especially with the Miss Shadow initiative, is that, we are focused on moving this industry forward and keeping it relevant and keeping it here in Michigan.
It's kind of interesting, as a past chair of the National Small Business Association, I can tell you the influence that this chamber has, because even through those trying years, we paid attention to what was happening here and what the initiatives were and what that was helping, because NSBA is mostly advocacy. This is feet on the ground as well, right? And so you have to be able to say that the people that are on your board, but also the people that are in membership, this chamber has been incredible at getting them involved, using them as a resource, right?
Well, I would say that that's exactly how I happen to be on the board. I think the thought was that we needed some representation from middle market business, business perhaps that wasn't tied to the auto industry, but helps hopefully enhance the quality of life in this community. And I'd like to believe that I've become deeply immersed in the initiatives of the chamber because not only are they well-intentioned, I deem them necessary for us to succeed going forward. And there's no question but that, it's a numbers game. We know that the needs in our society are infinite, the resources are finite, but if we can help one person, then we're doing well. And I think that the efforts we're making will help far more than one person. They'll help thousands. And I think that enhancing the quality of education by focusing on that as a policy matter, as well as boots on the ground in terms of high school attainment, increasing the success by counseling students in junior and community college and so forth, which is one of our initiatives as well. Those are going to pay dividends in the future, no question about it.
I think also, Chris, I see the clock is ticking down. I'll try to be brief, but how we define getting an education and completing your education, educational attainment. Tammy and I had an interesting meeting yesterday with one of our community colleges, and we were talking about, that was a lot of the subject. What does it mean to complete your education? And some of the leaders at this community college were explaining to us that for a lot of people, you can have job A, and you may only need to take 2 classes to maybe make $4 or $5 more an hour. The way it's measured now is going to show that you did not complete your degree, but you did complete what was good for you because you just needed those 2 classes to get an uptick in your salary. And so our whole approach and how we define what it means to get an education, and it just needs to be, I think, much broader than it has been historically.
Well, the definition is probably what you need to get ahead, right? And then we all benefit from that.
Yes.
It's all the boats rising. Well, listen, I want to thank all of you for being here, and thank all of you for being here and so involved in everything. Let's have a round of applause for our panel.